It started quietly, no big headlines, no breaking news, just small shifts, whispers in courtrooms, power brokers stepping back, loyalists going silent. One by one, the walls around Donald Trump began to move, not with a crash, but with a steady, grinding force that no headline could fully capture. Today, we're not asking if Trump's fall is coming. We're showing you how it's already underway and why it might already be too late for him to escape. For years, Donald Trump built his brand on dominance, business tycoon, TV star, commander-in-chief. He thrived on being the disruptor, the outsider who crashed the gates and rewrote the rules. But while he made noise above the surface, a very different story was unfolding in the shadows. Quiet investigations, sealed indictments, financial audits, insider testimonies, all slowly tightening around him. In this video, we reveal the lesser known cracks forming beneath Trump's empire. Not just the ones the media flashes briefly, but the deeper unraveling that even some of his own supporters are starting to notice. You will learn how legal pressure, financial strain, and political abandonment are working together in a way that Trump never truly faced before. And why this time, the chaos he once controlled is turning against him. This is not about opinion. It's not about party lines. It's about facts, timelines, and patterns, many of which have been hidden in plain sight. For example, did you know that several of Trump's former allies are now turning state witnesses? That his core business holdings are under threat of dissolution? Or that key figures inside the Republican machine are preparing to move on without him? These aren't just bumps in the road, they are signs of a turning tide. They are signals that the era of Trump, the real one, not the TV version, is being quietly dismantled, one courtroom at a time, one boardroom at a time, one betrayal at a time. In the next few minutes, we'll take you step by step through this silent unraveling, from the growing legal traps being set in multiple states, to the financial hits his companies are taking behind the scenes, to the calculated distancing of former allies who once praised his name. Each piece reveals something deeper, that Trump's grip on influence is weakening faster than most realize. You'll learn how his social media power, once his sharpest weapon, has lost its edge. Why his campaign machinery is no longer the well-oiled force it once was. And how the rise of a younger, more strategic generation of political players is pushing Trump into the background, even as he tries to stay center stage. But that's only the beginning, because as the walls close in, Trump is starting to change. His tone, his pace, his moves, they're different now, less confident, more defensive, and in some moments, even desperate. He can feel the shift too, and that makes this moment more dangerous than any election or scandal in the past. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this fall isn't just political, it's personal, structural, and possibly irreversible. This is the kind of collapse that happens slowly until suddenly it isn't. Until the illusion breaks, and what's left is no longer a man towering above the system, but a man cornered by it. So, if you've ever felt like there was more happening behind the headlines, if you've sensed that something about Trump's story is entering a new chapter, you're right. And you're about to see exactly how deep that chapter goes. We are not here to speculate. We're here to reveal. And what you're about to witness might just change how you see Trump's future and America's in ways few are ready to admit. Welcome to our channel. Subscribe now and join us as we expose the real story, the one unfolding behind the cameras. Because by the time most people realize what's happening, it will already be too late. He didn't rise quietly. From the start, Donald Trump made noise. Big buildings, big gold letters, big promises. In New York's ruthless real estate world, Trump didn't just want to succeed, he wanted to dominate. He painted himself as a winner long before he ever proved it. Through headlines, magazine covers, and a flood of self-promotion, he crafted the image of a man who always wins, no matter the odds. He wasn't just selling buildings. He was selling himself as a symbol of success. Then came television. The Apprentice wasn't just a show, it was a stage. Millions watched as he sat behind a desk, barking out orders, deciding fates with a cold, "You're fired." It gave him more than ratings. It gave him a persona. To viewers across the country, he became the ultimate authority figure. Untouchable, unshackable, always in control. Even if it was scripted, it worked. The line between reality and entertainment started to blur. People began to see the TV version of Trump as the real one. He used that illusion and carried it straight into politics. When he announced his run for president, many laughed. But he didn't flinch. He leaned into controversy, thrived on conflict, and turned media outrage into free coverage. The more critics tried to take him down, the stronger he appeared. The attacks only fed the narrative that Trump could not be defeated by normal means. Lawsuits didn't stop him. Scandals didn't shake him. Fact checkers couldn't touch him. For every accusation, he had a counterattack. For every mistake, he had a louder distraction. This pattern built a myth around him, a myth of immunity. Like no matter what he said, no matter what surfaced, nothing would stick. He told people he could shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue and not lose support, and many believed him. That wasn't just arrogance. It was a calculated reminder he plays by different rules. And for a long time, that seemed to be true. Supporters admired his boldness. Critics underestimated him, and institutions that should have held him accountable often hesitated. Whether it was financial audits, bankruptcies, or political norms, Trump moved through them with a kind of brute force. When rules got in his way, he challenged them. When systems tried to check him, he attacked them. Courts, the press, Congress, it didn't matter. His strategy was always the same: deny, deflect, dominate. Even when he became president, he didn't switch gears. He brought the same tactics to the White House: bold statements, sharp insults, a constant stream of headlines. His critics called it chaos. His base called it strength. And through it all, the illusion deepened. The man who shouldn't have won had won. The man who kept being counted out was still standing. Every time he dodged a scandal or survived a controversy, his image grew tougher. This wasn't by accident. It was carefully fed by years of media control, branding instincts, and an uncanny ability to shift the spotlight. Trump didn't just want to be seen. He wanted to be seen as unstoppable. And for a time, that's exactly how it looked. When Trump left the White House in January 2021, he didn't fade into the background like most former presidents. He didn't retire quietly or step aside to make room for new leadership. Instead, he doubled down. Almost immediately, he began to reshape his role, not as a former leader, but as the still present force behind the Republican Party. Losing the presidency didn't end his influence. It became his rallying cry. The first sign came through his endorsements. Trump quickly began handpicking candidates for local, state, and national races, many of them little known before his support. His stamp of approval became a golden ticket in Republican primaries. Crowds listened. Campaigns shifted. Candidates started mimicking his language, repeating his slogans, and aligning themselves closely with his views to secure his backing. It was clear that Trump's shadow still loomed large, especially in deeply conservative districts. But he didn't stop at endorsements. He returned to the stage with massive rallies, packed with thousands of loyal supporters wearing red caps and waving signs. These rallies weren't just political events. They were performances designed to remind everyone that Trump still had control over the narrative. He spoke not just about the past, but about the future. The energy felt like a continuation of his presidency, same tone, same slogans, same crowd chants. For many, it was as if the election loss hadn't really ended anything. Behind the scenes, he also kept a grip on Republican messaging. Many lawmakers, even those who once criticized him, began to echo his language. Some feared backlash from his base. Others hoped to ride his popularity into their own re-elections. Either way, Trump's influence stayed active on Capitol Hill. Policies, talking points, and public stances often reflected his views even after he was no longer in office. The MAGA movement became more than just a campaign slogan. It evolved into a full-blown identity. Across the country, grassroots groups continued organizing under Trump's vision. Social media platforms, podcasts, and online forums lit up with content focused on defending him, spreading his message, and attacking his enemies. He was no longer just a political figure. He was the symbol of a larger rebellion against the political establishment. He also kept teasing a return. Hints of a 2024 run kept supporters engaged and opponents on edge. Every public statement, every interview, every event was carefully shaped to maintain suspense. Trump understood the value of speculation. The possibility of a comeback became a weapon of influence. He didn't need to hold office to shape headlines. Just the idea of his return was enough to keep cameras pointed at him and the political conversation centered around his name. Even legal trouble didn't silence him. When indicted or sued, he used the spotlight to play the victim card, energizing his followers by claiming persecution. His strategy wasn't to avoid controversy. It was to turn it into fuel. Whether through campaign speeches or Truth Social posts, he pushed the same narrative, that he was still fighting, still leading, and still the one voice strong enough to stand against the system. The courtroom has become a familiar backdrop in Trump's post-presidency life. For years, legal issues swirled around him, but now they've taken on a new intensity. Since leaving office, the number of criminal indictments, civil lawsuits, and federal investigations he faces has grown rapidly, each one chipping away at the image of invincibility he once projected. One of the biggest developments came from New York, where a civil case brought by the state's attorney general targeted the Trump Organization. Investigators accused Trump and his company of inflating the value of assets to secure better loans and insurance deals, while deflating them for tax breaks. The evidence presented painted a pattern of deception going back years. Multiple properties, multiple valuations, and numbers that didn't add up. In court, Trump's defense was aggressive, but the facts were lined up and documented. This wasn't just a fine, it opened the door to potential dissolution of parts of his business empire. At the same time, criminal indictments arrived. In Georgia, a grand jury indicted Trump for trying to overturn the 2020 election results. The evidence included recorded phone calls, pressure campaigns on local officials, and a web of coordination with allies aimed at subverting the vote count. It was the kind of charge that didn't just target political behavior. It reached into the core of election law. Then came the federal indictments over classified documents. After leaving the White House, Trump took boxes of sensitive government material to Mar-a-Lago. When asked to return them, he stalled, redirected, and in some cases allegedly moved them to avoid detection. Prosecutors presented photos, emails, and witness testimony suggesting a deliberate attempt to withhold these documents. The charges didn't just concern possession. They pointed to obstruction, concealment, and potential violations of national security protocols. There were also investigations into his role on January 6. Federal prosecutors examined his words, actions, and coordination leading up to the Capitol riot. Text messages, phone records, and eyewitness accounts began building a timeline that put Trump closer to the heart of the chaos than previously believed. Legal experts watched closely, warning that incitement or conspiracy charges could still be on the table. Meanwhile, civil suits from individuals and organizations added pressure. From defamation claims filed by women accusing him of misconduct, to business fraud allegations, to lawsuits from police officers injured during the Capitol riot. Each case added another layer of legal exposure. The volume of cases meant Trump needed an army of lawyers and constant court appearances, draining both time and resources. What makes this wave of legal trouble different is the pace and coordination. These cases aren't isolated. They're stacking. Federal and state prosecutors are moving simultaneously. Civil and criminal cases are overlapping. Some former allies are flipping, offering insider testimony in exchange for lighter treatment. The legal system is no longer circling. It's closing in from every direction, leaving less space to maneuver. Trump always placed value on loyalty. To him, it wasn't just a quality, it was a requirement. Those who stood by him were rewarded, and those who questioned him were pushed out. For years, this approach seemed to work. His inner circle stayed close, defended him publicly, and followed his lead no matter the situation. But now that circle is cracking. The people who once protected him are beginning to speak out, and some are helping prosecutors build cases against him. One of the earliest signs came from Michael Cohen, Trump's former personal lawyer and self-described fixer. For years, Cohen fiercely defended Trump both in business and in public. But after facing his own legal troubles, Cohen flipped. He testified before Congress, handed over documents, and detailed Trump's involvement in hush money payments and financial misrepresentations. His statements weren't just damaging, they opened the door for deeper investigations into Trump's business practices. More recently, Mark Meadows, Trump's former chief of staff, has become a key figure in legal inquiries surrounding January 6. While his public stance remains careful, multiple reports suggest Meadows has cooperated with federal investigators. That cooperation includes turning over text messages and participating in interviews. Meadows had access to Trump's private conversations during critical moments, making his testimony one of the most valuable pieces in ongoing probes. Cassidy Hutchinson, another former White House staffer, delivered explosive testimony to the January 6 committee. Her account revealed details about Trump's behavior behind closed doors during the Capitol attack. She described his anger, his refusal to intervene, and even his physical reactions when his security team denied him access to the Capitol grounds. Her words painted a far more chaotic and unfiltered image of Trump than most had ever heard before. Even members of Trump's legal team have begun distancing themselves. Some attorneys have resigned from his defense. Others, like Rudy Giuliani, once seen as one of his most loyal allies, now face their own legal challenges, forcing them to make decisions that could put them at odds with Trump's version of events. When former defenders start considering their own futures, loyalty becomes fragile. The Department of Justice has also been quietly interviewing lower-level staff, former aides, assistants, and campaign operatives. Many of these individuals may not have made headlines, but they were close enough to witness key actions and conversations. As pressure builds, more are cooperating under legal agreements, providing timelines, emails, and first-hand accounts. What's unraveling isn't just support, it's silence. People who once shielded Trump with vague answers or legal delays are now sharing details. Loyalty is giving way to self-preservation. Prosecutors are using these insiders to build patterns, confirm facts, and connect timelines. And every new voice from Trump's inner circle adds another piece to the puzzle that once seemed out of reach. For decades, the Trump name was marketed as a symbol of luxury and success. Towering buildings, sprawling golf courses, and gold-plated branding created the image of a powerful business empire. But behind the bold logos and polished surfaces, cracks were forming. And now, with mounting legal and financial pressure, the foundation of that empire is beginning to shift. The Trump organization has faced investigations before, but recent developments have brought unprecedented consequences. In a major civil fraud case in New York, prosecutors accused the company and Trump himself of consistently manipulating asset values. Some properties were allegedly overvalued by hundreds of millions of dollars to secure loans, while others were undervalued to reduce tax burdens. The court didn't just question the numbers, it identified a pattern of deception that stretched across years. As a result, massive financial penalties were imposed. Fines totaling over $350 million were ordered, striking a heavy blow to the company's cash flow. And the punishment didn't stop there. The court also imposed restrictions on Trump's ability to operate certain business activities in New York. These weren't just symbolic moves, they directly impacted how the company could function in one of its most important markets. Several business licenses were revoked or placed under supervision. This affected Trump's ability to manage or profit from some of his most iconic properties, including those that once carried his name proudly. Banks and insurers began reassessing their relationships with the Trump organization, some choosing to sever ties entirely. Without trusted financial partners, even well-known assets can become difficult to maintain. There's also the matter of shrinking income. The brand that once attracted high-paying tenants and elite clientele has lost its appeal in many circles. Several properties have struggled with occupancy rates, while others faced backlash or public boycotts. International deals became harder to secure, and licensing agreements in multiple countries quietly dissolved. Where Trump's name once added value, it now draws controversy, and in some cases, financial loss. The cost of legal defense adds to the strain. Fighting multiple lawsuits across state and federal courts requires a deep reserve of money. Lawyers' filings, expert witnesses, all of it adds up quickly, with ongoing trials and investigations stretching into months and possibly years. Those expenses will continue to mount. Internally, reports suggest there's growing concern among executives and longtime partners. Some are reportedly re-evaluating their roles, while others have exited quietly. New ventures have been delayed or scaled back. The company that once operated like a marketing machine now finds itself constantly on defense, reacting to legal rulings and public scrutiny instead of expanding or innovating. These financial challenges are not happening in isolation. They're compounded by reputational damage, political fallout, and limited access to traditional funding sources. As more cases move forward and more fines are enforced, the Trump organization's future looks less stable. The empire built on luxury branding and financial confidence is now facing a test it can't solve with headlines or slogans. During Trump's rise, the Republican Party gradually reshaped itself around him. His voice dominated primetime. His slogans became the party's language. Many lawmakers who once kept their distance eventually fell in line, praising him at rallies, defending him in the media, and aligning themselves with his base. For years, party unity was built not on shared policy, but on shared loyalty to Trump. But that unity is starting to break apart. As legal battles multiply and public fatigue grows, prominent Republican figures are quietly stepping away. Some are doing it with subtle shifts. Fewer mentions of Trump in speeches, less public praise, and more focus on their own platforms. Others have gone further, openly criticizing his actions, questioning his electability, or suggesting it's time for a new chapter. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has long had a complicated relationship with Trump. While he supported many of his policies, their personal tensions were clear. Since the 2020 election, McConnell has kept a calculated distance, rarely defending Trump during controversies and refusing to echo claims about a stolen election. His careful silence speaks volumes in a party where every word is measured. Former Vice President Mike Pence, once seen as Trump's most loyal second in command, has drawn a clear line. After the events of January 6, Pence openly condemned the pressure he faced to overturn the election results. His public statements since then reflect a growing divide, and while he still appeals to conservative voters, he's made it clear that he's not following Trump's lead anymore. Other high-profile Republicans like Chris Christie and Asa Hutchinson have become more vocal. They've criticized Trump's legal troubles, questioned his influence over the party, and warned against nominating someone under multiple indictments. Their voices don't dominate headlines the way Trump's do, but they're shaping conversations within the party, especially among donors and strategists looking ahead. Even within Trump's own circle of previous supporters, there's hesitation. Some GOP lawmakers who once attended every Trump rally now avoid questions about him in interviews. Others are carefully positioning themselves to appeal to both his base and a broader general electorate, signaling a shift toward independence. In key primary races, candidates endorsed by Trump are no longer guaranteed victories. Voters are splitting and party leaders are watching. Republican governors in swing states are also keeping their distance. Many are focusing on local issues, building their own brands, and avoiding entanglement in Trump's ongoing controversies. Their silence isn't accidental, it's strategic. With future elections in mind, they're weighing the cost of being too closely tied to someone under investigation. Behind the scenes, conservative donors and political action committees are starting to hedge their bets. Funding is shifting. Some traditional backers of Trump are now spreading support among other rising figures within the party. These moves signal a broader recognition that the party's future may not rest on Trump alone. As party leaders look ahead to national elections, many are reconsidering the risks. Trump still holds influence, but the cracks in party loyalty are growing. The sense of unity that once surrounded him is giving way to cautious separation. The Meiji movement once looked immovable. Fueled by passion, anger, and loyalty, it carried Trump through the 2016 election, protected him through scandals, and helped him survive impeachment. Rallies were packed. Online communities were loud. And for a while, it seemed like the base would follow him anywhere. But over time, things have started to shift. The cracks in that once solid wall are now becoming harder to ignore. Some of the earliest signs came from voter turnout. In key elections after Trump left office, MAGA enthusiasm began to dip. While his core supporters remained vocal, the broader circle, those who once backed him with energy but didn't live and breathe politics, started to fall off. They showed up less, donated less, and paid less attention to his constant stream of statements. Fatigue began setting in. Part of the fatigue comes from repetition. The same slogans, the same grievances, the same attacks. It no longer feels fresh. Supporters who once found his style energizing now describe it as stuck in the past. Many hope for new ideas or a clearer direction, but instead they're seeing the same playbook. It's no longer about the future. It's about defending the past. Some former loyalists have become disillusioned by broken promises. Key goals from Trump's presidency, like repealing Obamacare, building a fully funded wall, or draining the swamp, either stalled or never truly materialized. While the blame was often directed elsewhere, frustration began to grow. Behind the chants and the red hats, some supporters started to ask hard questions about what was really accomplished. Legal troubles have also made an impact. For a long time, Trump's base dismissed investigations as political attacks. But as the number of indictments grows and as new details emerge, a portion of his followers have started to reconsider. It's not that they suddenly trust the media or the courts. It's that the constant defense is wearing them down. Some are simply exhausted from the nonstop controversy. Others are looking toward new leadership. Figures like Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, and even outsiders with fresh conservative voices have started gaining traction among former Myles supporters. They speak with similar energy, but without the heavy baggage. To some, they represent the next generation, fighters, but without the chaos. The loyalty that once felt unshakable is now more flexible. On social media, conversations among Trump supporters have shifted. Once, any criticism was met with immediate backlash. Now, there's more openness to debate. People are sharing concerns, asking questions, and exploring alternatives. The tone has changed, not fully turned, but softened. The certainty is fading. Even at rallies, there's a noticeable difference. Some events are smaller. Some energy feels forced. Longtime attendees still cheer, but newer faces are fewer. Volunteers are harder to recruit. Donations are down in certain areas. The movement is still alive, but it's not growing the way it once did. These aren't loud defections. They're quiet exits, a slow turning away, a step back, not always out of anger, but out of wariness. The base that once gave Trump unmatched political power is still there, but more fractured, more cautious, and no longer entirely his. In Trump's rise to power, media was one of his strongest tools. He didn't just use coverage, he controlled it. News networks followed his every move, his tweets sparked headlines, and even criticism worked in his favor by keeping his name in the spotlight. Conservative platforms in particular embraced him. Interviews were constant. Hosts praised him. Talking points aligned perfectly with his narrative. But that relationship is beginning to cool. Some of the very outlets that once celebrated Trump's every speech are now pulling back. Fox News, long considered a Trump stronghold, has begun shifting focus. Primetime hosts still speak positively about him at times, but more voices on the network are questioning his legal issues and wondering aloud whether he's still the best option for 2024. Other conservative platforms like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Post have published editorials that call for fresh leadership, signaling a clear break from total alignment. Even right-leaning commentators who once fiercely defended him have started to shift their tone. The loyalty isn't automatic anymore. They still support conservative ideals, but many now say Trump's baggage could harm the movement. These changes reflect deeper conversations happening behind the scenes. Questions about electability, about legacy, and about how long the party can be tethered to a single personality. While Trump's grip loosens, a new generation of Republican leaders is quietly rising. They're younger, more polished, and more focused on policy than performance. Ron DeSantis has gained significant traction by presenting himself as a fighter with discipline. Other names like Nikki Haley and Tim Scott bring different strengths to the table: global experience, a fresh tone, and appeal beyond traditional GOP boundaries. These newer figures don't rely on Trump's style of provocation. They choose calculated messaging over chaos. And they're building their own followings, independent of his base. Trump's tactics, nicknames, public insults, constant grievance, don't land the same way on them. They don't respond, and that robs him of the conflict he thrives on. These rising voices aren't just ignoring Trump's old playbook. They're replacing it. Social media was once Trump's battlefield. A single tweet could dominate the news cycle, rally supporters, or destroy an opponent's narrative. But since being banned from major platforms, his online presence has never fully recovered. Truth Social, his own platform, hasn't reached mainstream audiences. And even there, engagement numbers often pale in comparison to his past reach. Meanwhile, algorithm changes on platforms like X and Facebook have reduced the visibility of political content overall. Without daily amplification, his posts don't spark the same viral response they used to. His digital dominance, once one of his greatest advantages, has been quietly dismantled. Attention is fragmented, trends move fast, and Trump's voice no longer sets the pace. As these changes take shape across media, party leadership, and online spaces, the Trump spotlight is dimming. He still speaks loudly, but the echoes aren't reaching as far. The stage is more crowded and the audience more divided. Where once he stood alone, now he competes, not just with critics, but with the next wave of conservative influence. Outside of America, Trump once projected the image of a powerful outsider, someone who would shake the system, stand firm against global institutions, and demand better deals. Many international leaders, whether allies or rivals, took notice. Some admired his boldness, others feared his unpredictability, but nearly all respected the influence he commanded. That image, however, has eroded. What once appeared as strength now looks like instability. Foreign leaders aren't just watching his legal troubles. They're quietly recalculating what a second Trump era would mean for their countries. During his presidency, Trump clashed with NATO, pulled out of global agreements, and openly criticized long-standing allies. At the time, these moves were defended as tough negotiations. But now, with years of distance and growing evidence of political chaos surrounding him, many of those same countries see things differently. Allies like Germany, France, and Canada have become more cautious in how they speak about US politics. Their leaders have subtly made it clear that Trump's return would raise concerns, not just about policies, but about global stability. Meanwhile, adversaries like China and Russia see an opportunity. Trump's political and legal turmoil is not viewed as a sign of strength, it's seen as weakness. They watch the division in American politics and the legal mess unfolding around him and use it as proof that Western democracy is in decline. For international diplomats and strategists, Trump is no longer just a controversial figure. He's a potential liability. If he were to lead again, the unpredictability he once used as leverage could now make him too difficult to rely on. At global summits and diplomatic meetings, his name doesn't carry the same weight. World leaders speak more freely about their concerns, and international media treats him less as a dominant figure and more as a divisive one. Where once there was curiosity and cautious engagement, there is now skepticism and distance. Trump's global image has shifted from being a feared negotiator to being a symbol of dysfunction. Back in the US, the weight of all this is starting to show. In recent public appearances, Trump's usual confidence seems forced. His speeches, once sharp and provocative, now feel rushed. He talks faster, jumps from topic to topic, and often returns to old grievances instead of offering new ideas. The same slogans, the same stories, the same attacks, they no longer hit with the same force. There's also a noticeable change in tone. More defensive, more agitated. He interrupts himself, repeats phrases, and often lashes out at perceived enemies, even when they're not part of the conversation. These aren't just signs of anger, they're signs of pressure. Legal deadlines, court dates, campaign demands, all converging into a narrow, closing window. Those around him have started noticing. The stagecraft is still there, the large crowds, the dramatic music. But beneath the performance, there's a shift. A sense that time is running out. The man who once controlled the clock is now racing against it. Not just to save his campaign, but to preserve what's left of his influence. And deep down, he knows the clock isn't stopping.